Hello everybody, my name is Ghost Bunny and today I'm going to be reading Iron Widow by Xiran Zhou. Hope I said her name right. I've been practicing a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I still mispronounced that. She's a fellow YouTuber and I will be linking her YouTube channel down below. I'm pretty sure everyone here probably already knows her, but just in case the three of you who didn't know, then there's her channel so you guys can go follow her. She talks a lot about Chinese influences or Asian influences on Western media. For example, Mulan, Turning Red, and so on. Just giving a quick little insight in, the Asian American or Asian Canadian, because she's Canadian, Asian Canadian point of view of certain things. And I find her videos very interesting and very entertaining. Okay, but yeah, I am gonna be reading her book Iron Widow. So yeah, if you guys have it, you guys can join along reading with me. If not, you could just read this as an audiobook. Although I'm gonna give my first disclaimer that is that one, I have no affiliations with Xiran Zhao or with the publishing company she signed under. None of the sorts. This is just us gal pals having a good old gay time just for funsies. And yeah, although the book I'm pretty sure is entirely in English, I gave it a little skim, and there are probably gonna be some names of people that I may mispronounce because I am not a native Chinese speaker or speak any of the sorts. I'm not trying to make fun or mockery of the language. I just do not speak it. So there will be certain names of places of people that may in fact be in Chinese. That I may mispronounce. That is not me trying to do that on purpose. That is just me just being bad at the language. And talking about being bad at the language, English. I do speak English. I think at a promedial, like intermedium, maybe I speak it fluently, kind of. But when it comes to reading, for some reason, that doesn't translate all that well, so I may mispronounce words that are just blatantly in English. So yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna begin by reading the back side. If anyone is following along with me, um, this is just the back part. She did put a quote here by Julie C. Dow, the author of Forest of a Thousand Lanterns. So I'm gonna read the quote, and I'm gonna be reading today the pilot, the Jesus, what is this? I'm gonna be reading the prologue, not the pilot. I'm gonna read the prologue, chapter 1 and chapter 2. The chapters seem to be quite short, although it could be getting longer as we go along. But just so you know, so right now we are on the back side of the book. I tend to read them because I find them very interesting, especially when I get a new book. I like to see because it kind of gives you an idea of what the book's kind of about, or it can let the vibes. So the quote by Julie C. Dow, author of Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, goes like this. Like its ferocious heroine, Iron Widow is brutal, bloodthirsty, and full of rage. Zetian's fight to shatter patriarchal definitions of power make for a truly thrilling read. So she really enjoyed it, is what she's trying to say. End quote. Sorry. But yes, let me go to the. Oh, by the way, she has a little message for Rebecca Schaefer. I'm pretty sure that's how you say her name. Um, who was there for her the whole way as she transformed from statistic to survivor, strong enough to write the story. So thank you to Rebecca for encouraging our girl. So let's go. Oh yeah, here's a little disclaimer from the author herself. It says, please be aware that this book contains scenes of violence and abuse, suicide, intent, ideation, discussions, and references to sexual assault, though not on page this um though not on page depictions, alcohol addiction, and torture. So these are just things that may be in the book, or just that way you guys get a little warning. I wish more books had little warnings like this. I read a lot of them and they don't tend to have these little warnings, which I think should be because they're just in case. But yes, thank you for putting this. I'm going to continue reading. It says, this book is not historical fantasy or alternative history, but a futuristic story set in an entirely different world inspired by cultural elements from across Chinese history and featuring historical figures reimagined in vastly different life circumstances. Considerable creative liberties were taken during the reimagining of the historical figures, such as changing their family upbringing or relatives' age to each other. Because accuracy to a particular era was not the goal, to get an authentic view of history, please consult non-fiction sources. Okay, I like this. this is not a historical like fantasy. She's not going to use real life historical events, or she might use them, but just very liberally around the book. It's not going to be a one-to-one comparison. So if you want a real life historical storytelling, please look for nonfiction, because they will be probably more accurate. Although I will tell you this, history is told not entirely as it is. There's always three points of views of every story. There is one, two, and maybe how it really happened. Yes, I'm very much the type of person who believes that there is no 100% accurate retelling of any amount of history of any time. So I'm really glad that she, clarified that this is not the case. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna be starting with the prologue. So if you're following along, that is gonna be our numero uno page. Okay, so let us begin. The Huns were coming, a whole herd of them, rumbling across the wilds, stirring up a dark storm of dust through the night. Their rotund, faceless bodies, made of spirit metal, glints under the silver half-moon and sky full of glittering stars. A lesser pilot would have had a flight of nerves to go meet them in the battle, but Yang Guang wasn't phased. At the foot of his watchtower just outside the Great Wall, he compelled the Tricelis, the nine-tailed fox, to launch into action. It was as tall as a 7 or 8 star building, as 80. Jesus, I can't read. As a 7 or 8 story building, and bristly green. Its metallic claws pounded across the earth, shaking it. Our chrysalis was no ordinary war machine. Yang Guang didn't maneuver it with steering wheels or levers like he would an electric carriage or a hovercraft. No, he became it. While his mortal body was dormant in the cockpit, it its arms around the concubine pilots he'd taken to battle together, his mind psychically commanded every part of the nine-tailed fox, making it pounce together the incoming herd on the horizon, far out on either side of him. The silhouette of the other active curry chrysalis force raced forth as well. Through hair-thin acupuncture needle, Jesus, through hair-thin acupuncture needles along his pilot's seat that bit into his spine, Yang Guang channeled the qi, his life force, the power of the fox. Qi was the vital essence that sustained everything in the world, from the sprouting of leaves to the blazing of the flames to the turning of the planets. Not only did he draw on his own, he reached across the chrysalis psychic link and sapped up the concubine pilots as well. Her mind wasn't strong enough to put up with any resistance as he did so. It was lost deep inside his pieces of her memories floating around him, but he did his best to ignore them. It was best not to know too much about his concubines. The only thing he needed was the interactions of her chi with his own, which manipulated his spirit pressure, making it impossible for him to command the chrysalis so large. Trickles of command class Handons reached Yang Guang first, like oversized metal bugs, eager to burrow on into the fox and kill him. Their various colors were dull under the starlight, but some lit up, shooting weaponized chi out of their bodies in luminous blasts or crackling bolts. If Yang Guang had faced them as a human, well, they'd have loomed as big as houses and vaporized him instantly. But when he piloted the fox, they were too small to hurt him. As he smashed them with the fox's claws, bursts of foreign emotion shot through him, grief and terror and rage, of as righteous as static. He didn't know how exactly chrysalids were made from Hundun's husk. Only the highest level of engineers were allowed to know, but even centuries of improvement, their craft hadn't vanquished the kink that made pilots feel whatever the Huns felt when they pierced the Hun's hull. Pilots didn't talk much about this in public, but rest, resisting the distracting emotions was a surprisingly righteous part of the battle. Yang Wang was one of the most powerful pilots alive, precisely because he could detach from them so well. He detached them really well. Powering through the mental onslaught, he kept pushing the Hundans. The fox's 9 tails swished and creaked behind him like 9 new limbs, slapping larger Hundans away with resonant clanks. Sorry. Yang Wang had no pity for them. The Hundans were invaders from the cosmos who'd pulverized the height of the human who pulverized the height of human civilization some 2,000 years ago and shattered humanity into scattered tribes. If it hadn't been for the yellow Sauverge and legendary tribe leader who'd invented chrysalis crafting with help from the gods, civilizations would never have recovered, and the planet would have belonged to the Hundans by now. Camera drones whizzed around the fox like red-eyed flies, some of them belonging to the Human Liberation Army. Others were from the private media companies broadcasting the battle to all the Huaxia Yang to all the Hashua to all of Huaxia. Yang Guang stayed hyper-vigilant, not letting himself make a mistake lest he disappoint his fans. 9-tailed fox, there's a prince class in the herd. An army strategist shouted throughout the speakers in the Fox cockpit. Yang Guang jerked alert. A Prince-class Hundan was a rare opponent, the same high class of the Fox. If he took it out with minimal damage, it could be made into a new Prince-class chrysalis to be offered to the gods in exchange for some major gifts, such as manuals for groundbreaking technology or medication. And the win would give a massive boost to his battle rank. Maybe he'd finally shoot past Li Ximing, that convinced that convicted murderer who did not deserve to be Huaxia's top pilot. For a clean shot, Yang Guan would have to shift the fox into a more complex form. Xing Tian, cover me! He called to his closest com- comrade through the fox's mouth, his chi broadcasting his voice across the battlefield. I'm going to transform! Got it, Colonel! Xing Tian yelled from the headless warrior, a chrysalis with shining yellow eyes, where its nipples should have been, and a mouth glowing on its gut. Yeah, the amount of times they say chrysalis, you would think I would eventually learn how to pronounce it properly and not just stop midway being like chrysalis going on. Continuing, it stomped in front of the fox, battering the swarming Hundans with a giant spiritual metal axe. They died in splatters of light. Assured, Yang Guan propelled his chi through the fox with the most forceful spiritual pressure he could generate. Radiant cracks fissured across the fox's grizzled green surface. Chrysalis might have been constructed from Hundan's husk, but they were superior in every way. The Hundans were so mindless they couldn't unlock the potential of the very spirit metal they were made of to become anything other than rotoblobs. But humans, well, they could. Young Guan imagined the fox ascended form, and it morphed into being. The fox's limbs tightened and lengthened, its waist drew in, and its shoulders rolled back, making it slightly more humanoid. Its 9 tails became as sharp as lances, and they fanned out from the base as if backed like sun rays, the way real 9-tailed foxes perked their tails up to intimidate enemies. He raised the fox upright with his chi, conducting at a higher spirit pressure. He had enough control and finesse to balance it on its 2 legs. The set of that sets the fox's front claws free to fight with a weapon. Around one of the fox's tail lances and snapped it from its back. He barreled through the rolling herd of differentially sized Huddons until he spotted the prince class. Then he sank low and leaped from the ground. The lance arced through the night, hurling a gleam of moonlight before piercing the Hundon's body, its round body, featureless except for night, its 6 tiny bug-like legs. Spirit metal shattered with a spectacular sound, like a whole warehouse of porcelain exploding. Yang Guan braced against the flood of the Hondan's rage and dread as the light of its chi-filled core spurtled, spurted and dimmed. Spurtled and dimmed. The other chrysalis, fending off the sea of glistening Hundans, hooted in delight. Camera drones closed in on the Prince-class husk, and Yang Guan could imagine commoners cheering across Huaxia behind the scenes. He was like, everyone's being like, damn, bro! Woo! Exhilaration thrilled him. He bounced back in the fox, scraping the last out of the Hundun. However, even after he removed contact, a foreign fear lingered in his mind. It came from his concubine now, cresting through him like a wave. This was the point where he always knew a concubine's mind would not make it back to her own body. He was now subconsciously controlling everything about her, down to her heartbeat. The moment he disconnected, there'd be nothing left to keep her heart pumping, and she'd pass into the beyond. There were no way around it. There was no way around it. Sorry. The important thing was that that her family would receive a nice compensation. Her soul would rest well in the yellow spring knowing that he didn't remember her name. He tried not to. He went through so many concubine pilots that it would be, you know, paralyzing distraction to keep track of them. And he couldn't afford to be distracted. He had a world to protect. She had known what she'd been getting into. She had made the decision to enlist for him. Yang Guang focused on crushing and spearing the rest of the herd, reassuring his fans that their homeland would continue to be safe. That concubine's noble sacrifice would not be in vain. And that was the end of the prologue. We're gonna be starting with part one. So, yeah, part one, but we're gonna begin chapter one. They're divided by like stories. So part one is Way of the Fox. And here's a quote by Classic of Mountains and Seas. It goes like this. There is a kind of creature in the mountain with the look of a fox with 9 tails, whose sound is like an infant's cry. It feasts on human flesh. End quote. Okay, now we're gonna be reading chapter one. A butterfly that better not be my dead sister. That's a very interesting chapter one title. Let's begin! For 18 years, my unibrow has saved me from being sold into a painful, dreadful, terrifying death. Today is the day I'm releasing it from its gracious service. Okay, I'm not doing it. Yi is the one man- manning the tweezers my sister left behind. Kneeling on the bamboo mat spread beneath us over the damp forest soil, he lifts my chin while ripping out brisk after brisk. My skin burns as if slowly incinerating. The ink black revolts on his half up half swish over his pale silk robes as he plucks. My own hair, way more matted and parched than his, sits in a messy bun under a tattered rag. Through the rag smells like grease. It keeps the stray strands out of my face. I've been trying to act nonchalant, but I make the mistake of grazing at Yeezy's gentle focused features for far too long, wanting to inscribe them in my mind so I'll have something to hold on to in the last days of my life. My stomach twists and hot pressure surges into my eyes. Attempting to squint the tears back in only breaks them free down the sides of my nose. Seriously, that never works. Of course, he's noticed. Stops everything to check what's wrong, even though he has no reason to believe it's anything more than a reaction to the assault on my pores. Even though he has no idea this is the last time we'll see each other. You're right, yes? You're right, Setyan? He whispered, tweezing his hand suspended in a gossamer swirl of humidity from the waterfall not far from our hiding place. The rushing cheeks, I mean, Jesus, the rushing creek beside the low-growing trees where hundreds huddling under thousands. His voice, Jesus Christ, can I read? The rushing creek beside the growing trees were huddling under drones. His voice from anyone who might discover us. I sure won't be if you keep taking breaks. I roll my swollen eyes. Come on, just let me power through. Right, okay. His frown twitches into a smile that almost breaks me. He dries my eyes with his fancy silk robe sleeves, then gathers them back near his elbow. They're rich people's sleeves, too long and floppy to be practical. And I make fun of them every time he visits, though to be fair, it's not his fault his father doesn't let him and his 27 siblings leave their estate in anything not luxury brand. Lucid sunlight freshly broken apart after days of rain streamed down its shafts through our secret world of damp heat and swaying leaves. Patchwork of light and shadow damples his pale forearms. The, the bursting green scent of springtime presses against us, rich enough to taste. His knees, he even sits in a prim and proper kneel, keep a tiny yet insurmountable distance from my carelessly folded legs. His designer silk robes contrast abruptly with the weathered roughness of my homespun tunic and trousers. Until I met him, I had no idea fabric could be that white or smooth. He plucks faster. It really does hurt, like my brow is a living creature being frayed bit by bit into two. So if I tear up again, it shouldn't be suspicious. I wish I didn't have to involve him in this, but I know that past a certain point, it would be too painful to face my reflection and do it myself. All I would see is my big sister Rui, without the overgrown hairs that have kept my market value low. I'll it'll, I'll look so much like she did. Plus, I don't trust myself to landscape two matching brows out of the entity I've got, and how am I supposed to sign up for my death if my eyebrows are uneven? I distract myself from the scalding ache by scrolling on the luminous tablet in Yeezy's lap, reading the notes he'd taken in school since he visited me last month. Each tab feels more scandalous than being alone with him on a frontier mountain scrawled by greenery and spring heat, breathing the same thick eddies of earthy, intoxicating air. My village elders say girls shouldn't touch these heavenly devices because we would, well, we would desecrate them with, I don't know, our wicked feminineness or whatever. Only thanks to the gods in the sky was technology like these tablets reconstructed after humanity lost ages of covering from the Huntons. But I don't care how in depth I am to the elders or the gods. If they don't respect me just because I am from the, and I quote, wrong half of the population, I'm not respecting them back. The screen glows like the moon against Yeezy's leaf shadowed robes, enticing me with knowledge. I'm not supposed to have knowledge from beyond my measly mountain village, arts, science, huntons, chrysalis. My fingers itch to bring the tablet closer through neither it nor I can move. A cone of neon lights I spilled is spilling from an indent on the device, projecting the mathematically ideal brows from me into my face. Yeezy and his dazzling city gadgets never disappoint. He whipped this up mere minutes after I lied about my family, giving me a final warning regret regarding the unibrow. I wonder how much he'll hate me after he finds out what he really helping me to do. A droplet shivers out of the branches over our head. It skims his cheek. He's so engrossed and he doesn't really notice. With a curled knuckle, I brushed away the wet dash on his face. His eyes startled wide. Color blooms into his pampered, almost translucent skin. I can't help but grin, turning my hand to touch him with the pads of my fingers instead. I wink. Oh my, are my new eyebrows already irresistible? Yeezy breaks into a louder than usual laugh and smacks his fingers over his mouth and glances around, even though we're decently hidden. Stop it, he says quieter, laughter turned feather light. He ducks away from my gaze. Let me work. The rising, undeniable heat of his cheeks sings me with a flash of guilt. Tell him, my mind pleaded. But I just dropped my hand as casually as possible and flicked to a new section in his school notes, a social studies topic about the statistical dynamics of Hundun's attack. Why should I endanger my mission by telling him? However, Yeezy sees this relationship we have. I've never made the mistake of taking it too seriously. He's the son of literally the richest man in Huaxia, and I'm a random 14er girl he met by chance while getting some peace and quiet in the farthest place he could go in his hover cycle. If someone caught us together, he's not the one who'd get to suffer in a pig cage and drowned in the name of his family's honor. No, 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 no. No matter that, we've never crossed any lines we shouldn't. My attention drifts to his lips, straying over his delicate curves, and I'm brought back to the time I marveled out loud about how soft they look. He admitted it's thanks to a four-step exfoliation and moisturizing routine, and I laughed so hard that there were tears in my eyes as I touched his lips, and then I wasn't laughing anymore, just staring into his eyes too close to him. Then I immediately drew back and changed the topic. A raw, tender part of me aches at what I would never have with him, but I have not and cannot rule out the possibility that this is nothing but a game to him, that I'm not the only peasant girl he visits on his break days, that the moment after I give in, he'd fasten his silk sash of his impeccable robes and laugh in my face, laugh about how something could mean so little to him but be life or death to me. Yet I could still be hypnotized into it by his soft smiles and whispered words. Maybe my caution is what made this all the more thrilling. What's made him show up at the end of every month for the last 3 years. I can never know his true motives, which is fine as long as I do not give into my emotions. I cannot lose any game that might be me being played. Though, realistically, even if my entire village stumbled upon us this very second, my family wouldn't throw me now. I'm finally doing what they want, parading myself so they can sell me to the army as a concubine pilot, just like they did my sister. Obviously, they don't know about my bigger, deadlier plans. As Yeezy moves on to the undersides of my brows, my fingers linger over a picture of Hundan Chrysalis, battle in his class notes. The chrysalis, the white tiger, is so sharp and vivid in color that you'd never guess it was once a round, featureless Hundan husk. Pictured in its heroic form, its highest transformation, it looks like a humanoid tiger warrior made of smooth milky glass. Its armor-like pieces are edged with the radiant green and black lines, the colors blurring with motion as it raises a dagger axe taller than a tree. It's a favorite of the army to use in promos, and I actually feel comfortable looking at it. The boy-girl pair mentally connected to it as are a balanced match. There is a little risk on the boy's mind consuming the girls and killing her once the battle ends, unlike the female pilot in most other cases. There's the way I feared. Jesus. That's the way I feared Big Sister would die when our family forced her to enlist under a Prince class pilot, the second most powerful rank. But she never made it to the battlefield. The pilot killed her the traditional physical way for what? I don't know. Our family only got her ashes back. They've been devastated for 81 days now because they didn't get the big war death compensation they were banking on. It's funny. Big Sister spent her whole life being cared about. When is Ruyi getting married? Is Ruyi going to enlist instead? My, has Ruyi been sitting in the sun too much? She's getting a little dark. But the moment news of her death spread, no one brought her up again. They never brought her up. No one even asked what I did with her ashes. Only Yeezy and I know she's been carried off by the creek beside us. A little secret between him, me, and her. I lift my eyes to an actual butterfly chrysalis dangling on a branch behind Yeezy. The chrysalis were made after those, so the saying goes that dead pilots reincarnate into butterflies. So the saying to butterflies. If that's true, I sure hope this one isn't my sister. I hope she's gone far, far away from here, somewhere that can't be reached by the condemning village elders or nosy gossipers or greedy relatives or scumbag pilots. A nascent butterfly has been squirming in the chrysalis for a while now, detaching from the surface layer. Now finally it's ruptured the membranes. Its head emerges upside down, antenna pop out, wiggling in a grand finale. It wholly unravels from the chrysalis like a blooming flower. Butterflies are common in these woods, so this isn't as special a sight as you might think it would. Expect, except when this butterfly shakes off out its wings, the patterns don't match. Whoa! I sit up straighter. What is it? Yeezy looks over his shoulder. That butterfly has two different wings. Yeezy looks. Yeezy also makes a noise of surprise, which means that isn't some typical phenomenon. I don't know about because I'm a frontier peasant. Like it's not just that. He tells me my brows are pretty much done. then raises his tablet to take a magnified video of the butterfly. Our eyes didn't trick us. One wing is black with a dot, and the other is white with a black dot, like the yin yang symbol. These butterflies were named after exactly that, but I've never seen one with both yin and yang wings. How did this happen? Yeezy stopped. Yeezy smiled widened. You know what to do when you got a question. Search it up, got it. I opened the search engine and Yeezy sounded like he taught me. It's not hard to use, I just have to enter the keywords of my question. But it's surreal and daunting using just a few tabs to access all the knowledge the scholars in the cities have reconstructed crypts manuals from the cryptic manuals of the gods drops down whenever we offer enough tribute. I squint in concentration at the academic writing in the search results. It's way harder to read than Yeezy's class notes, but I determined to sort them, on my own. Apparently, having different wings means a butterfly is, hmm, both male and female? My frown spring loose. I gape at the sentence. That can happen? Oh yeah, biological sex has all sorts of variations in nature. Yeezy crawls beside me on the bamboo mat, gathering his robes away from the gray, dirty dirt bench. There are even creatures that can switch sex depending on their needs. But I think fast. I thought females are females because their primordial chi is yin based, and males are male because their primordial chi is yang based. Yin and yang represent the opposing forces that turn the universe into life. Yin is everything cold, dark, slow, passive, and feminine. Yang is everything hot, bright, fast, active, and masculine. Or so my mother told me. Yeezy shrugs. Nothing's ever that rigid. I guess there's always some yin and yang and some yang and yin. It's right on the symbol. Now, I gotta think about it. I'm pretty sure there are even classes where humans are both like this, like that butterfly, where you really can't actually pin what sex they are. My eyes widen further. Which seat would those people take if they became pilots? Every chrysalis has the same seating arrangement. Girls go in the lower yin seat, while boys go on the slightly higher yang seat, behind them, wrapping their arms around the girls. Yeezy taps the bamboo mat, his fine his fine brows knit in thought. Whichever gender they're closer to, maybe? What does that even mean? And what point would a seat stop working for them? I bugged. What is it about gender that matters so much to the system anyway? Isn't piloting entirely a mental thing? So why is it always the girls that have to be sacrificed for power? I I don't know. I tried to search for a legitimate answer to this, but I met with a red warning box. Warning. Insufficient permission. Results restricted. Oh, you can't search anything related to chrysalis crafting. They can't have people, building rogue units. Easy takes over the tablet. I let him slide it out of my hand. I stare him and the butterfly at the same time, both yin and yang wings. Female. The label has never done anything for me except for dictate what I can and can't do. No, no going anywhere without permission, no showing too much skin, no speaking too loudly or unkindly at all. If the men are talking, no living my life without being constantly aware of how pleasing I am to the eye. No future except pushing out son after son for a husband, or dying in a chrysalis to give some boy the power to reach the glory. It's as if I've got a cocoon shriveled too tightly around my whole being. If I had my way, I'd exist like that butterfly, giving onlookers no easy way to bind me with a simple label. Easy. Do you believe girls are naturally predisposed to sacrifice themselves? I mutter. Well, that can possibly be true because you're a girl. I mean, that can't possibly be true because you're a girl. And there's no way you would ever do that. A laugh rumpled out of my gloom. What? Where's the lie? He stamps his hands on his hips, sleeves flopping. Okay, fine, there's no lie. I strain back a grin. Then the curl of my mouth fade. I wouldn't live and suffer for anyone else, but I would die to avenge my sister. Yeezy smiles obvious. Honestly, though, there's nothing wrong with, cherishing your life, with fighting for what you want. I find it admirable. Wow, I snored half-heartedly. Are my eyebrows really that bewitching now? Yeezy laughs. I'm not brave enough to lie to you, so I'll have to admit, you do look much more prettier in that conventional way. His smile softened, his eyes brightened in the patchy shade like night ponds reflecting the stars. You're still the Zetian I know, though. I think you're the most stunning girl in the world, no matter what you look like. My heart clenched, crackling. I can't do this. I can't leave without telling him the truth. Easy, I say in a voice as dark as smoke. Sorry, was I... Oh no, was I too weird? A chuckle shakes out of him. On a scale of 1 to middle-aged man asking you to put on a smile for him, how uncomfortable did that make you? Easy. I grab his hand as if I could brace him for what's coming. He falls silent, peering in confusion at our clasped hands. I say, I'm enlisting as a concubine pilot. His jaw slacks. For which pilot? I open my mouth, but I can't spit out the bastard's name. For him. He searches my eyes. For Yang Guang? I nodded. All warmth gone from my face. Sitson, he killed your sister. That's why I'm going. I fling Yeezy's hand away and slide a long wooden hairpin out of my rag-wrapped hairbun. I'm going to be his beautiful, sultry concubine, and then I yank the hairpin apart, revealing the sharp points within. I'm going to rip his throat open in his sleep. And that was the end of chapter 1. Okay, I'm gonna begin reading chapter 2. Like water hurled out the door. I stagger through the mountain path with my bamboo cane alone. A lattice of forest shadows crawls over me, sliced up by 2 blades of scarlet twilight. If I don't get home before the sun drops beyond the western peaks, my family will think that this time this is my latest attempt to escape. The whole village will start combing the mountains with flashlights and barking dogs. They can't have their own daughter thinking it's possible to run away. Soggy leaves turn to mush under my tiny, battered shoes, which Yeezy had offered to replace countless times, but I could never accept his gift for fear of my family finding out about him. A lump swells in my throat at the memory of his horrified expression after learning of my self-imposed mission and broken the broken way he called my name after I vanished into the woods to abandon the conversation. I shouldn't have told him. There was no way he wouldn't try to stop me. Now that awful moment is the last we have of each other. I'm not sure if I heard the word of the hovercycle over the treetops, but I hope he's left the mountains. He can't change anything. He doesn't own me. Nobody does. They may think they do, but no matter how they scold or threaten or beat me, they can't really control what goes on in my head. I think that frustrates them to no end. A bloody haze of sunset grips at the end of the forest path. When the shadow released me, my view opens to the rice terrains I grew up in. Whole mountainside carved like stairways, soaring for the skies. Trenching of clothes, rainwater gleam on each tier. Nourishing rice fields, seedlings and mirrored The scorching sky, fevered clouds drift across every wedge of water as I make my way between them. My cane squelches over platforms of gray mud. Smoke from roasting dinners rise from the clusters of a house nestled in the terrace. The plums weaves into the orange dust-tinged mist swirling around the highest summits. In the skin-crawling winter when I was 5, when the cold pressed in so ruthlessly that the rice terrace, terraces froze solid, my grandmother forced me to walk over the ice with no shoes. After the cold crystallized deep into my flesh, turning it purple, she shooed all the men out of our house, sat me down in the frosted concrete, turned and soaked my feet in a wooden basket of boiled pig's blood and numbing medicine. Then two of my aunts held me down against the floor, and my grandmother's broke every bone along the over the arches of my feet to crush them in half. The force of the scream and that tore out of me still flashes through my memories when I least expected, always stunning me in the middle of whatever I'm doing. That's not the case of the pain, though. The pain can't surprise me because it has never felt. A lightning strike of it shoots up my legs with every step I take. Every single step. I don't walk. That burning tread over the frozen rice terrace was the last time I walked. Ever since then, my feet have been bound into bulging mist-shaped mounds that can only totter. 3 toes have fallen off from infection that nearly took my life, ruining my balance for good. The other toes wrap around the bottom of my feet, clutching the other side near the heels as if trying to squeeze the mess of bones and flesh back of my legs. My soles are smaller than my palms, I a pair of perfect lotus feet, if you will. It really boosts my market value. My family had scolded me endlessly for letting my facial hair grow rampant and having too much fat around my waist, but I I faced the worst lashing and screamed insults when I rebelled against the tightness of my foot binding. Hairy brows can be plucked, weight can be starved off, but lotus feet stop being lotus feet once they're allowed to grow, and no man from a respectable family would marry a girl without bound feet. Without them, we'd be no different from the Rugdi, my grandmother once yelled, while I shrieked and sobbed about going through with the ritual. She was refined to the tribes that largely roam the untamed wilds with a pack everything on horseback and run strategy of evading the Huns. Some were incorporated into Huaxiao when we pushed the Hundans out of whole chunks of territory. Others from further out have been sneaking through the Great Wall in small persistent tricks. Living on the frontier, we have plenty of neighbors. My family has always cautioned me against being like their women who run all over the place with no moral shame or decency. When I was little, I used to buy into their fears of becoming those women, but the older I got, the more confused I became about what's so bad about them. When I passed under a cluster of houses higher on the terraced mountains, a few men knee deep in the terrace lurched up from their work and ogle as I waddled by. They wouldn't dare come closer to me. Everyone knows everyone around here. but they never fail to make their desires clear. See, when every frontier daughter who's remotely decent looking and either enlists as a concubine pilot or gets sold to richer men in the cities, the frontier men start having serious issues finding wives to bear their sons. The bride price have soared up to tens of thousands of yuan, impossible for families here to afford unless they enlist their own daughters or sell them to rich city men. It's a mess of a cycle and not ending anytime soon. No one stays in the fortress unless they have to. Most of us here are only because our original ancestors' home, the Zhou province, fell to the Huns 221 years ago. I throw the men my most hateful glower. The terrace pools blaze like molten copper under the sunset, and I fantasize about real heat building up in them, boiling the men alive. Then my cane snaps and I tumble. Gravity. One of the first scientific concepts I learned from Yeezy. It snatches it snatches me towards the mud path and almost into a rice paddy. The heel of my hand scrapes a harsh dent in the mud. Cold destiny smacks into my nose and cheek. I push on to both arms. Gray filth plops from my heatening face and latches to my tunic. I brace myself for hollering laughter, but it doesn't come. The men are splashing through the terrace, instead, hollering excited, crowding around something holding a tablet. A quiver rippled through my confusion, a quiver in the terrace waters specifically. My breath hitches. Unmistakable vibrations are Unmistakable vibrations are traveling through the ground, stirring the water. A Handan chrysalis battle is starting beyond the frontier. I press my ear to the earth, not caring that it's stirring me further and damping the rag tide around my hair. The Great Wall is only a few mountains away. One clear day we can see the dusty, lifeless peaks that have been sucked dry of chi by the chrysalis stations along it. The men must be watching a live stream and betting on the number of battle points each pilot will achieve, but it's so much more raw and visual and stunning, sensing the physical force of the chrysalis through the planet. What power! My throat goes dry, yet my mouth waters. I close my eyes, picturing myself taking command of a chrysalis, towering over buildings and smashing the earth with my colossal limbs or luminous chi blast. I could crush anyone who's ever tried to crush me. I could free all the girls who love to run away. A whooping cheer from the men fractures my daydream. I rattle my head. Flakes of dirt fly onto my sleeves. I crawl onto my knees, covering the filth, staring at my broken cane. I should really stop with this delusion. Somewhere else. I don't know if my father will count on me as having reached the house before my curfew. Some last dregs of sunlight. Our fortress of mountains with a glory blue halo silhouetting them in colossal shadows that look eerily like Huntons. Where were you? My mother breached through the barred window of the kitchen shack on the side of our house. Her voice is as frail as the steam sting from the large wok of porridge she's stirring. My grandmother sits on a stool behind her, descaling the loyu, a winged fish from the terrace water. Firelight from the hearth flares across the weathered faces as if they're trapped inside a blazing dungeon. I was in the woods. I passed my mother's pouch of herbs and starch root. through the window. Gathering these are why I spent so much time in the forest and how I first met Yeezy. What happened? My mother puts the pouch on a wooden shelf without looking away from my grimy state. Gray hair stray out of the fading rag, tied over her head, fluttering in the visible ripples of heat. Took a tumble, broke my cane. I resumed teetering over the stone walkway that lines the row of houses. I land my feet gingerly, trying not to plummet on the clay-tiled floor of our neighbor's one tier down. You're lucky a battle started. You're lucky a battle started. My mother startled at My mother darts a look at the main entrance of the house up ahead. Her eyes glistened orange from the crackling hearth flames. Go quickly. Don't let your father see you like this. Right. And scrub those clothes clean tomorrow. You can't look like that when the army comes. A stab goes through my chest as the usual way she mentions that. She might have no idea about my true intentions, but she must be aware that my enlistment will end in my death, no matter what. She must remember how it ended for Big Sister, or does she? Sometimes my mother goes. Sometimes my mother's so good at pretending nothing's wrong that it scares me into suspicion. Into suspecting. I'm the one with the head full of false memories? Am I? Your mom's really good at this called girl bossing. Yeah, mom is an expert at gaslight, gatekeep, and girl boss. But yeah, I'm sure they'll give me a better chance. I'm sure they'll give me better clothes. I stare at the bars of the light dithering out of the kitchen window. But you still have to look presentable at least. I stop waddling and turn at the waist to face her dead on. There's one big consequence to my assassination plans that I've done my best to ignore. Killing an iron noble, a pilot with a maximum spirit pressure of over 2,000, when the human average is 84, would implicate 3 generations of my family: my mother, my father, my 17-year-old brother, Dalang, Dalang, my grandparents, my aunts, and my uncles. They would all be executed along with me, because pilots like Yang Wang are just too important to the war efforts. Give me one reason to protect you. I gawk at my mother. Stop me. All I need is one sign that they're worth my mercy. One sign that they value my life as much as I expected to value theirs. Since there's no point holding back now, I spew my most burning thought out loud. Are you honestly more worried about me looking presentable than me going off to war? The fire cracks and pops beside my mother. She squints at me through the wood smoke and fragrant steam. Then a smile blooms across her face, like a wildflower in a burning wasteland. Her brows. He listens. You look beautiful. I whip my head away and trudge on, no matter what, no matter that every step is like stomping on a live wire. It's like she didn't even hear what I said. Electric lanterns blink on across the village, lighting up windows like the glowing eyes that chrysalises have but Hundans don't. A breeze swept through the rice terrains, swirling a reedy musk into the roasting scent of humble dinners. When wheat-colored light spills out of the open main doors of my house, a battle comment a battle commentator's tiny shout plunge punch into the falling night, blasting from the blast, blasting from the tablet granted to our family by the Pasha government. Though of course only the males can use it freely. Sexist much? My grandfather, father, and brother have probed it on our greasy blackened dining table, their eyes bulged at the screen, reflecting the flashing colors of Hundans and chrysalises clashing. I take the chance to steal over the house's threshold. I hurry toward the room I've been forced to share with my grandparents since my second attempt at sneaking away during the night years ago. And here comes the vermilion bird. I howled, almost dropping over. My blood runs cold. Oh, not that unit. Even my crystallizes obsessed family, which usually cheers on every big name unit, remained uncomfortably silent. Nobody wants to acknowledge that the vermilion bird is the strongest chrysalis in the Huaxia right now. At over 50 meters tall in its Stanford standard forward standard form, it's the only king class we have. But look, it's highlighted by Li Shimin, the Iron Demon, and half wronged death row inmate who murdered his own father and both brothers at just 16. He's 19 now. His execution has been indefinitely delayed only because of his freakishly high spirit pressure, the highest in 2 centuries. While concubine pilots are always in danger of dying in battle, only when it comes to him is death so certain. No one has ever survived a ride with him. A girl will die soon. Hey! My father startles me out of my thought. I jump, clutch the wooden walls. His chair screeches back on the concrete floor. He rises, shadows sliding over his frown lines. Why do you look so dirty? I see sweat beads under the length. Jesus. I see sweat beads under the edge of my hair rag. I fell on the terrace. Not alive for once. The clashing of spiritual metals and chi blasts ring on in the live stream. My grandfather and brother keep watching as if nothing is wrong. My father steps around them and walks towards me. His top knot, tragically loose due to his thinning hair, flops against his head. You better not have been fooling around with a boy. Of course not. I back away, shoulder hitting the door of my grandparents' room. Half a lie. I was breaking one's heart instead. My father charges closer. His looming figure doubles in my view. You better be able to pass the maidenhood test when that one jolting word makes me forget how I fear him. For the last time, nothing's ever been up inside me. I screamed, stop being so obsessed. He blanks out in shock, but I can feel the utter fury that's coming. I slip through the bedroom door and slam it in his face. What did you just say to me? His shout shudders through the house, and his fists thunder against the door, the brass hands jangling so hard it sounds like something broke inside. Unwrapping my feet, I jam my back against the door while acting on the threat. Unwrapping feet are more indecent than naked breasts, not to mention the rotting flesh smell, which is possibly its own class of biological weapon. Girls are supposed to maintain the fantasy of their dainty prettiness by always wearing perfumed embroidered shoes and never removing the bindings in front of anyone, not even their husbands. My father's fists leave the door, but his lungs below on. Disrespectful, ungrateful, you whore! I laugh against the bowl, the sound hardening with a dark edge. Tell him I'm not worried. I'm only here for 2 more days. Then he can have all the peace he wants. My mother sighs. Tian Tian, your father just feels emotionally very strong. Deep down, he knows that you've matured after all, that you understand what really happens. He's proud of you. She smiles. I'm proud of you. I raise my head stiffly. You're proud of me for sending myself off to death? You don't know if that happened. She evades my eyes. You've always had a strong mind. Didn't the testing team say your spirit pressure might be over 500, 6 times the average? And that was 4 years ago. It must be even higher now. You and Prince Colonel Yang could turn out to be a balanced match. You could be his Iron Princess. There are only 3 Iron Princesses in all of Huaxia. Tears tumbled from my eyes, hazing my view of her. And their spirit pressures are in the thousands. It's just a low odds fantasy that gives girls the illusion of surviving. Tian Tian, don't be so loud. My mother darts a panic glance at the door. It is a fantasy that comforts you too. I go on. Is it a fantasy that comforts you too? I go on. Does it help you sleep at night? Her eyes glistened. Why can't you accept that you're doing a good thing? You're going to be a hero, and with that money, Dan could pay a bride price for a. I smashed the bowl to the ground. The porcelain shatters, and porridge escapes in a slimy, steaming burst. Tian Tian! My mother stumbles on her feet. Your grandparents sleep here. Where? And what are they going to do? I yell pointedly at the door. Beat me so I can turn young Guang off with my fresh wounds? Make me sleep in the pigsty so I can turn him off with my smell? If you all want the money so bad, you can't do anything to me anymore. Tian, get out! You can't speak to her like this. A voice in my head chides, sounding chingly, like Big Sister. She's your mother, the woman who gave life, but a mother who has failed me so thoroughly. No mother of mine. My chest heaves. I lean forward, hands clutching my knees, my voice squeezed out around a hard sob in my throat. In the next life, I hope we have nothing to do with each other. And that was the end of chapter dos of Iron Widow. If you guys been liking my reading, like, comment, and subscribe. I will be reading the rest of this volume of this beautiful book. And if you guys want to continue the journey with me, then you guys can, give a little follow and keep up to date. With that being said, I hope you have a good day, night, wherever you are, however you are, and bye 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 bye.